I'm going to be very careful what I opine on.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, January 19th, 2024. This is a regular meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth. We're live in the Commissioners' Room, second floor at City Hall. Welcome to everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order at exactly 2 o'clock p.m. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll do roll call. Commissioner Don Preston.
Here.
Commissioner Tony Sharp.
Here.
Commissioner Ed Stronowski.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett. Absent. Commissioner Tim Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Bunky Barker. Here. Mayor Stan Mills here. And we have a quorum and are able to formally conduct business today. I would also like to identify our staff it takes to run the town, run the meeting. From left to right is Matt Janis, building inspector, building supervisor, city secretary Ann Womack. Everybody's going to raise their hand to wave to you when I call their names. Interim city manager Evan Miller, city solicitor Alex Burns, Kevin Williams, public works supervisor, number one, and Henry Matlow's public works supervisor, or to be supervisor, number two. Welcome. Jean Lee from our Human Resources Department, Chief Keith Banks from the Police Department, Lynn Cohen, Communications Specialist. I think we got everybody. Nobody's hiding behind the podium. Okay, very good. I would like to thank you all for being here in person. You know, as people that have been here before know that during certain times during the meeting, we ask for feedback, and you're welcome to raise your hand, and when recognized, come up, identify yourself, tell us your relationship with the city, and give us your comments on the different topics. I'd also like to thank those that are watching virtually today, and want to remind everybody that support documents, those are documents that support the individual agenda items. When they are ready at sufficient time in front of the meeting, they are embedded in the agenda. If you go to www.com, go to the center of the page, you'll see a lime green box at the legislative portal. Click on that. You'll have a calendar in the top right corner. Click on the date you're looking for, and that'll take you to the meeting, and you'll be able to see all the support documents that are done ahead of time, just like we're able to see. Would also like to identify Scott Cantalupo. Raise your hand. Scott just came in. He is building enforcement, building and licensing. I would like to start off by saying that I exercise the chair's prerogative to change the sequence of the agenda today to the following. After we get through the liaison reports, we'll go to the first item of business, will be the community benefits agreement with U.S. Wind, because the representative has to get to another meeting immediately after he speaks. The second item of business would be the permit of compliance. The third item of business would be salary.com, which otherwise is toward the end of the meeting. We want to get them up and presenting early so they can leave as earlier than otherwise based on the agenda. So with that, we'll go down to correspondence. Correspondence, when available sufficient time ahead of the meeting, is also embedded in the agenda. And so we have email from Heather Metz and Michael Fink, residents of the town. You can see that embedded in the agenda. With that, we go to approval of the minutes. The minutes for January 8, 2024 are not ready for the executive session. The minutes for September 29th, 2023 are not yet ready, so I'm going to read you the sets of minutes we will be considering for approval today. Executive sessions held on December 11th, 2023. Regular meeting held on December 15th, 2023. Special meetings held on August 18th and December 4th, both 2023, and December 11th, 2023. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of minutes. Are there any changes required in those minutes?
Mayor, I
If
move,
not, do
I
your
move
thing.
for approval of the mentioned minutes.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Ed Chernowski and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to approve the 5 sets of minutes as noted. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against, and the minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we go to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, and members of the public. Delmarva Veteran Builders, EDIS, Davis, Bowen, and Friedel, and the city continue to coordinate and prepare for demolition of the old Beach Patrol restroom facility within the next few weeks. Details related to utility termination and relocation, piling locations, fencing, material delivery, maintained pedestrian access, and more continue to be addressed. The city also is working to get temporary trailers for public restroom facilities established by mid-May at the end of Lake Avenue and the boardwalk. So to clarify, this is the location of the city's parking lot between the VIA and the PA Railroad property. City staff have reviewed the site with DENREC staff since this location is within the building line that DENREC manages. DENREC staff was receptive to this location, and the city will be filing the required application with DENREC. A temporary trailer for use by the Beach Patrol personnel also will be located in this area. Additionally, we're planning to have Rehoboth Beach Patrol medical staff temporarily located at the Delaware Avenue Comfort Station during the summer season. We thought it was very important to have a presence on the boardwalk in that area. As a follow-up from the January 8th workshop, please be aware that the quiet title action on the Pennsylvania Railroad lots is also now being advertised in the Cape Gazette. That was a request that came at the last meeting. And a legal ad ran this past Tuesday and will run the following 2 Tuesdays as well. Finally, Sussex Tree will prune many trees throughout the town February 12th through the 20th. Streets on which the company will be working include Stokely Street Extended, Newcastle Street Extended, Scarborough Avenue Extended, Silver Lane, Pennsylvania Avenue, Oak Avenue, Surf Avenue, and 2nd Street. And you'll recall this is part of the city's annual winter maintenance. Finally, there is a street aid expenditure included in the agenda. It's dated January 18th, 2024, payable to Delmarva Power in the amount of $11,307.75.
Mayor, I move approval for a street aid expenditure to Delmarva Power in the amount of $11,307.75.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ed Chernowski and a second by Commissioner Don Preston to authorize payment to Delmarva Power in the amount of $11,307.75. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and the motion is carried unanimously. Do you have anything else?
That's all I have.
I would like to add something real quick. I spoke in front of the VIA membership this past week. They were very interested in the status of the 2 vacant lots next to the Pennsylvania Railroad building. Why? Because after we announced previously that we were seeking a quiet title, some reporter went up there and just happened to run into a skateboard enthusiast who told the camera that he thought that a skateboard park was what would be appropriate there. I assure you we have no plans whatsoever for that area. Understood? Okay. Thank you. The next are city solicitors report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have anything to report on, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
We're good. We're good. Okay. Departmental reports embedded in the agenda are the following reports: Alderman Court report, Building and Licensing Department, and Code Enforcement reports, Communications Department report and Police Department report. Is Lynn giving a presentation on this, or this is just a support document?
Just a support document.
Okay, okay. So again, be sure to look on the portal and look up the agenda, and you'll find all kinds of exciting documents that support our agenda items, including a very lengthy police report. Chief, thank you for doing that.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
could I just request that all the commissioners, if you haven't done so already, take a look at the Communications Department report, which will tell us exactly what's coming in on Reach Out Rehoboth, which is very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. If I could just add one thing too. I know on the future agenda, we will have a presentation on the Reach Out Rehoboth sort of policy or procedure that was requested at a previous meeting. So that will be a topic at a future meeting too.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could ask a
Yeah.
question, either to building and licensing or the city manager. And perhaps this could be added for future building and licensing reports, is just what the current turnaround time is for permit applications. Do we,
Do you want to address that, Matt?
I know that that time period varies throughout the year based on demand, but it's sometimes
does.
good to know.
Thanks for the question, Commissioner. It definitely varies as of right now. You know, this is our business license season, so we have a whole bunch of renewals with business licenses as well as rental renewals. So that couples in with you know, the intake as well. Usually we're about 2 to 4 weeks, but sometimes extenuating circumstances push those permit releases either shorter or faster.
Okay,
Right?
thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to the next item, which is board and commission reports. I don't have any past reports to share with you at this time. And as far as committee reports, these are our advisory committees. I don't have any reports either. I did get a note from the Secretary of the Beach and Boardwalk Committee and a list of current topics, ongoing topics that haven't been finished yet. She's looking for a chair, or at least a temporary chair, so they can continue with their ongoing business. If you recall previously, I let everybody know that, for instance, for tree and green infrastructure, that wanted to have a meeting, I said that that was fine, based upon them putting on the agenda unfinished business, not new business, because new business is supposed to be brought in front of this commission. So I want to ask if anybody's interested to temporary chair that, let me know. But otherwise, I would offer myself, since I was a chair twice before on that committee, to be a temporary chair. If so, could I get your blessing today? Or do you want to do a formal vote as we would do for a normal chair position?
Have at it.
I strongly support the mayor having at it with the Beach and Boardwalk Committee.
Oh,
All those in favor?
Aye.
all righty. No, there's no vote. I will temporary chair that and keep you all posted. Thank you very much. With that, we move on to the next bit of business, and that is our liaison reports. For the Chamber of Commerce, normally Carol Everhart, the executive director of Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce, would give a report. I am the liaison. I will have this embedded in the agenda afterwards, but some of the highlights of her report dated January 19th, coming from the Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce, is she wanted you to know that the Chamber Area's Visitor Guide is going to the printer by the end of this month for about 140,000 copies. And they monitor very carefully who they go to and that they're available locally for pickup in newspaper boxes, but they also have a significant mailing and distribution program. She also wanted to let you know that the dining guide for 2024 starts production at the beginning of March. Realtor bags, if you're not familiar with them, every year they get a bag that's for realtors to hand out to their rental tenants that is filled with brochures and pamphlets and coupons. And in the past, such as when we implemented new no smoking rules on the beach and boardwalk and other areas, we did a brochure and they were kind enough to allow us to put it in their bags for us. And that's been an ongoing offer from them. So it's a reminder to us and the city manager that if we have anything that they would be glad to do so at no expense. Otherwise, they charge their own members 5 cents or something, some fee per item. Employment ads have been placed for summer interns and staff in place for the boardwalk. The staff is in place for the boardwalk kiosk. Maybe we need to contact them. I don't know if that's going to be in place this summer or whether the Beach Patrol medics will be using that area. So stand by. As far as occupancy reports, they do an annual comparison of last year to this year. And based on Wednesdays in 2022 was 107,000. Wednesdays this year, 100,000. So it was down about 7,000 in occupancy. And similarly, for our Saturdays, 2022 was 142,000, 2023 was 131,000. So a downslide there. And there's other data here that I will have embedded in the agenda, so you'll be able to see that on Tuesday. With that, the next liaison report.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
before you leave the Chamber of Commerce, do you have any statistics included in whatever you have that talk about the number of visitors to the visitor center, the traffic into the visitor center? I don't know that I know that off the top of my head, and I'm wondering if we don't have something maybe for the next meeting, could the chamber give us some statistics for 2023?
And that's for visitation at the Railroad Visitor Center,
Yes,
correct?
please.
Not their kiosk.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mayor, that report is already embedded in the agenda.
Oh, we have efficient staff here. Thank you, Ann.
When did that get in there?
Actually, it got in yesterday afternoon.
So it's hot off the presses. Excellent.
With that, our next liaison report is from the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society. The new director, Heidi Evans, is under the weather, not able to be here today. Our liaison to the Historical Society is Commissioner Bunky Marker. Do you have anything to offer?
Only to there's a scheduled board meeting for the Historical Society Board of Trustees scheduled for this Monday, January 22nd at 5 p.m. I'm not certain if that's open to the public, but it's taking place at the at their facility, and I can only state that they have an agenda of items that they're going to be discussing and potentially voting on, and I can respond to that at our next meeting or whatever.
If you don't mind, board member Jerry Capone is here. Are your board meetings open to the public? Okay, so
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
put a big question mark there.
Yeah, okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
since you asked that question, maybe we can understand at a different meeting why an organization that has partial funding from the city would not have open meetings. Just curious.
Well, first let's find out.
Yes, at another time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. With that, we'll move on to the next liaison report. That's from Rehoboth Beach Main Street, Commissioner Ed Chernowski.
We've got Dan Slagle, Susie Martin, and Cindy Lovett drawing a blank.
No respect.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Manager, and Commissioners. So I'm back. I covered a lot this morning, so I'm not going to go into about our upcoming events and everything that we've spoken about. But just I wanted to highlight two things for myself. I spoke to Patrick Gossett about the temperature of downtown Rehoboth during the holidays last summer, about the holiday season, hearing lots of positive from the merchants downtown. They had a very successful season. What I've created is a survey to, get more of a detail of what's going on downtown, and I'm submitting that next week. And we'll have more details for you at the next meeting. Also, my apologies, I had sent each and every one of you an invitation for our Delaware on Main event. Sorry for the short notice. I was waiting for confirmation from the state of Delaware of all the main streets that would be attending because it was limited seating. So I promise next time to get that out sooner. I do want to talk a little bit about Delaware on Main and what it's about. I want to thank the museum for hosting our event on the top floor. What it is a collection of all the main streets across the state of Delaware. And I was proud and honored to host this quarterly event. So we start off with Senator Russ Husble, who spoke. Also, our president spoke and Heidi spoke. I had the Jolly Trolley show up at 12:30, pick everyone up, take them downtown to Above the Dunes. It was complimentary, the food for the executive directors and other state officials. And then we have a tour of Rehoboth for the Jolly Trolley, which I was honored to, is that Above the Dunes is a member, and so is Jolly Trolley. So it was nice for the other main streets to meet. What I brought this up for, too, the reason is about our board. We spoke about our board this morning and how honored I am to have our board, a working board, and how dedicated they are. I heard so many compliments after the Delaware on Main from the state coordinator from all the executive directors, how our board is so supportive. You wouldn't believe how many board members showed up to this event and supported this. And I was very honored to have that. Sometimes you take it for granted, but I'm very appreciative of them and all the hard work that they do. I would like to introduce Susie Martin. I don't think I've ever introduced her. She is our vice president of Rehoboth Beach Main Street. And Cindy Lovett.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here in front of you. I have not come previously. I have been the vice president for, I think, 3 years, but I work full-time, or almost full-time. So it's a challenge to balance all the things I have going on, but I'm really excited about the project that I'm coming here to speak to you about. I think Cindy Lovett mentioned it to you briefly this morning. We approached Dion Watts, who is the postmaster of the Rehoboth Beach Post Office, and we would like to do a renovation project of the post office, which I think we'll all agree is sorely needed. We were using initially as our model the renovation of the Lewis Post Office, which was done about 10 years ago, entirely with private money. I don't think we're going to run ours that exact same way. We are still in the early planning process, but we've approached Dan Parsons, who is the Sussex County Historic Preservation Officer, and we're meeting with him. He's going to help us, along with the National Registry Coordinator, get our post office on the National Register of Historic Sites. That will open us up to federal funding, and we're hoping we can get some money to renovate the inside as well as the outside. I'm sure most of you have seen that beautiful mural in there from the WPA, and the artist is fairly well known. If you look up the name online, he comes right up. He's a famous Cubist artist, which makes sense when you see the mural. So we want to have that cleaned up and renovated, and it's really a center point to the town, and I think we all want to be proud of it. And it's very functional right now, but it's not so beautiful. So we want to bring the two things together. So that's our hope, and that's why I wanted to come here today and explain just a little bit of where we're going with this and how we intend to get there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Susie, I thank you, and I think it's so great that you guys are the design committee is particularly looking at historic preservation as one of the arms of Main Street. Have you discussed or looked at making, just because of the age of the building and how it's configured, it's not ADA compliant? Has that been a part of the discussion in helping with renovations, making it ADA compliant?
We hope to find a way to do that. And again, the federal funding would help a lot with that. We don't want to put it out there before we know it's even a possibility.
Gotcha.
But we're hopeful because obviously it's not easy for people to get in, even if you're not quote-unquote handicapped if you just have a bad knee. It's hard to get up those steps. I speak from experience. So I think that, you know, we would love to go forward with something like that.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you
And
so much.
just to clarify what Edward said, this is part of our design committee, and in addition to the post office, that's where we're starting because it's such a need. We also hope to expand that into improving other parts of downtown Rehoboth, like alleyways and just different places that maybe don't get a lot of attention, but you know, we tend to sort of overlook them, but then once you start looking, just like the post office, once somebody mentioned it, we're like, whoa, those light fixtures don't look so good. The handles don't look. So we really want to take a close look at downtown Rehoboth and try and clean it up, freshen it up, and do that kind of thing. And that would come under the auspices of our design committee, of which Cindy is chair. So do you want to speak? Okay, all right. And any other questions?
Just a clarification, Susie, on the time frame for the post office, just roughly, how many years do you think you might be working on that?
I'll really know more. We're meeting with Dan Parsons next week.
Okay.
So he's going to coordinate the meeting with also the National Registry Coordinator, and we'll really know then. Right now, we just didn't want to do it behind closed doors and then have you hear about it and say, what? What are they doing? So we really wanted to be open and transparent. We sort of want to get your blessing, and I think it's, you know, something that needs to be done. We hope that you would see it that way too. So today was just really sort of a put it out there thing, and, you know, just see if you have any questions. And the comment about the ADA compliant is definitely in our wheelhouse, and we're looking for that.
I don't have any comments other than to press on.
Okay, thank you. Great.
Ann, by any chance, are those 2 slides available that I sent to you? Oh, I thought I sent them to you. Anyway, shoot. Since Liz Lingo is the arborist is no longer with the city, she was my contact, my sole contact with the city for Rehoboth and Bloom. I had 2 slides that I thought I sent to Ann. I guess I forgot. Evan had asked me to come in front of you guys since Liz is no longer here. We have a couple of locations that we would like to put new planters. They are right at the bottom of the stairs, right here outside of City Hall, where that patch of brown is and the 2 trees. I tried to put a shovel in there to see if we could have put a garden in there, and the roots of those trees, it's impossible. However, planters could go there. And what we thought is between the 2 trees, we'd like, right across the street is what we call a trio in the median. 1 large, 2 small planters between the trees and 1 on each side. And the other one that Liz was actually pretty excited about was as you're coming into town, the first bump out, right there at Canal where the egg is, there's those 3 monstrous barberry bushes that she was more than happy to have us get out of there, and we'd like to put 3 planters there. I could send you the photos. I'm sorry, I thought that I could use them today. But I do have pictures of what they look like now and what we would like to do. So I just need permission. I typically just work with Mike Peterman and Liz when Liz was here. So I guess I need your okay to move forward and see if Mike is okay, because Liz always checked with the water department and the fire department and those departments to make sure that we're not blocking any, you know, utilities or anything like that.
Kathy, I think a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
If you could bring those to the February workshop so that
Yeah.
we can physically see them.
Actually, you know what? They're in the presentation, the PDF, but it's going to take too long. So I have to come to the next meeting?
Mayor, if I could
Somebody.
give my comments, I do not want to be in the business of determining where planters are placed, and I would ask that we rely on the city manager to either okay this or not okay it.
Well, there's a conundrum here because he sent it to us on purpose, and you're countering that. So you two arm wrestle.
I guess just to be clear, I'm more than happy to work with Rehoboth and Bloom if there's a consensus among the commissioners that you're supportive of having planter boxes out front of City Hall in that area, and if you're supportive of some type of landscaping project there by the Egg Restaurant and the intersection of Rehoboth Avenue and Canal. So there's consensus, there's an interest in this project. I'm certainly happy to work with Cindy.
I would like
Otherwise,
you to work with Cindy.
okay.
Me too.
Yeah, my preference is always to have flowers in the ground.
I know, I
And
agree.
out front here is a particularly exceptional area for it because we don't have parking spaces next to them and people walking all over it and everything.
Right.
But that's just me.
I have a question. Isn't the arborist still contractually doing work with, so can this be part of her decision as well? Could Rehoboth and Bloom continue working with her?
Certainly. I'm, though, very cognizant of the fact that Liz is now a consultant for the city, so consultant fees are a lot greater than
Yeah.
salary fees. So I will work with Cindy, and then if needed, I can bring Liz into that conversation as well.
I can still send you all the images of where we want to put them, and then should you have any concerns, you can run them through Evan. The only reason I'd like to get the planters ordered so that we have them by spring. That's all.
Cindy, was it in the presentation from this morning?
Yeah, there was the one slide in the bottom left corner, and I had actually met with Evan and Liz back in maybe October before she left, and I think I got good feedback from you both, but we hadn't finalized, and then when Liz left, it kind of got dropped. So that's all.
I would like the city manager to work with Cindy.
Okay.
Ditto.
Am I here alone?
No,
You hear me?
that's the path forward.
Thank you.
All right.
Work with
Thank you
city
very much,
manager.
everyone.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
With that, is that the end of Main Street report? Any questions for Main Street? Thank you. No, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time this morning also. With that, we'll go to our next liaison report for the Cape Henlopen Senior Center is Commissioner Sharnowski.
I have nothing new to report from the senior center.
Okay, and how about liaison from the Public Library? Come on up. We have a bunch of new people out in the public. If you would reintroduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lauren McCauley. I'm the acting director at the Rehoboth Beach Public Library. Thank you for having me here, commissioners. And I don't have a whole lot to report either. As you heard from Kay this morning, we've been having ongoing issues with our heaters. The children's heater needs to be replaced, but we're soldiering through. We have we put out space heaters to kind of take the chill down, and on the bright side, our new children's librarian has been fantastic. She has been putting together so many events on our calendar. We just had a very successful escape room last weekend, and we had a father and daughter from DC who sent us an email saying it was the highlight of their weekend. So that was really nice. And moving forward, we've got some virtual cooking classes that we're doing that are always really popular. We put together ingredients kits for the first 10 registrants so they can follow along from home. And that's pretty much it. We've had some illnesses in the staff. COVID's kind of been ripping through us, but we're doing good.
Good. Any questions for Lauren?
Just one question. We've heard twice the space heaters. The space heaters can be dangerous.
Yes.
Is there some procedure in place to make sure that?
Yes, absolutely. We keep an eye on them throughout the day. We're making sure they're not near anything flammable and unplug them at the end of the night. So.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we're not messing around with that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks.
With that, we're going to move on to the first real item of business, and that is actually out of sequence. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to go to old business 13A next, discuss and possibly consider signing on to a community benefits agreement between U.S. Wind, Inc. and the City of Rehoboth Beach via a stream of annual payments over 20 years worth $2 million. Of course, that means $100,000 a year. When they get going. The embedded documents in the agenda explain the draft community benefits agreement, as well as there's a press release in there. Mike Dunmeyer, come on up, who has represented U.S. Wind for some time now and spoke for us last time, is here. If you recall, one of the questions I think that was asked by maybe Commissioner Sharp or something last meeting was, what is the time frame, or is there a deadline for partnering with US Wind, deciding to sign on? Is there a deadline? After our meeting, when was it, January 8th, I then watched you spoke in front of, I think, South Bethany. I watched you speak in front of Henlopen Acres. I watched you speak in front of Bethany Beach. So a lot of the coastal municipalities are looking at this agreement. And one of the common themes seemed to come up was the same type of question. What is the deadline? Is there a rush to get this done? And Mike, I understand that you've researched that or talked to your bosses with that. So if you could start off with that, then that may determine which direction we go. So go ahead.
Sure. So thank you, Mayor Mills. And yeah, the question did come up amongst a couple different councils where I've been able to speak. And the question was often framed as, would you wait until BOEM has rendered their decision on the project, whether to approve or disapprove? And we've talked internally and think that, first of all, we want to make clear that we are sincerely interested in developing a supportive relationship with the towns. We're working on your time frame, not ours, and we actually thought that that BOEM decision date represented a really good milestone, because the reality is that the benefits would not flow unless the project is approved, so that approval decision by BOEM really kind of kicks things off. So we're perfectly happy to wait until that time and provide whatever support you might need in the interim.
Mike, and refresh our memory on when the BOEM decision is expected.
So we anticipate BOEM coming out with their final environmental impact statement sometime summer, perhaps into the fall. The final decision would come 60 days thereafter. So again, depending upon when the final EIS comes out, sometime summer into the fall.
So how I interpret that really is fall into winter, knowing government and everything. Well, based on that information, I personally think we jumped the gun on this. I would like to see us and suggest that we defer further conversation on this until exactly that time after BOEM has rendered their decision, and we have a better idea of where your path forward would be at that point. And also, I think that gives us more time to contemplate the project here. Also gives us a little more time to plan the return of this topic if and when we decide to do that. Planning in terms of trying to better explain that there are two topics here. One has been consideration of whether or not to sign on to this agreement, but the other, perhaps bigger for some people, is whether we support or are a skeptic about wind in itself. Remember, we're talking about US Wind project right now, which is down off the shore of Fenwick Island in New Ocean City. Ørsted is another competitor that has leases where they would place their wind turbines off the shore, pretty much off the shore of Rehoboth Beach, and also would be likely very visible from here, so visible from Bethany, and et cetera. So that is my recommendation, to immediately just table this topic until a future time. And I'd like to, and we have the opportunity to discuss further and vote on it today. But again, that's my suggestion. I'd like some feedback, please.
I completely support deferring it. I only have one question that does not need to be answered today, but it's on the top of my mind. Therefore, it will continue to stay there until I understand what the answer is. I could swear we talked last time about needing a very clear, concise communications plan to make certain that folks understand the two components of this, Mayor, that you talked about. And maybe at our next meeting, we can just get a status update of that communications plan, how we're going to go about it, what needs to be communicated now, if anything, because it's very difficult to talk to constituents about what's in front of us right now, which is only the community benefits. And there seems to be some reluctance to follow the direction, that's all we can opine on right now. The bigger project of wind in general is not what is in front of us right now.
Right.
So I'm just very curious, where are we on the communications and so forth? But to the issue of deferring, I don't think I even have the right amount of information to do anything further at this time.
Okay, well, we'll need to develop a communication plan, because my recollection out of that last meeting is that the conversation focused merely on Reach Out Rehoboth and what would we do. And I remember you, in fact, reneging on that, and we were going to hold off on that. So maybe what you're talking about now is
It's
in lieu of the Reach Out Rehoboth.
Yes, it's very
to
fundamental
be
right
more-
now
be
of
more
the
broad.
difference between a community benefit decision and the overall project. They're two different things. And I think getting some fundamental communications moving might help us in the long run.
That's an excellent idea.
Thank you.
We'll work on that. Is there anybody else that has a similar or
Commissioner-
different position?
To Commissioner Sharp's point, I think there's still a lot of confusion in the public, and that's correlates to a lot of the letters and feedback that we've all received saying, don't do this. We're basically endorsing offshore wind, and that's not at all what's in front of us. So I think if we could get more clear information and distinctions out to the public, that would be better for us to eventually make a decision when we need to make a decision. But I'm fine deferring on this. I would want to mention one thing to U.S. Wind, Mike. After doing a little bit of research myself, the project up off the shore of Nantucket, I think Vineyard Wind is the name of the company. They essentially, over 7 years, their community benefit sort of payment, if you will, was in the tune of $20 million to Nantucket. So when you come back before us, I think if we could have a better understanding on how you came up with $2 million over 20 years and how that relates to what other communities have received from similar businesses such as U.S. Wind, I think would be helpful for us to be able to put all of that into context.
And I'm not asking you to answer, because I'm trying to shut down the conversation.
Yeah, I'm just saying
If
when
we're-
it comes
if we're
back before
deferring,
that, I
then
would like.
We truly need to defer.
Yep, I'm fine deferring.
Commissioner Preston?
Yeah, I'm reluctantly okay to defer, but in the interim, I would like to revisit the question of what are the benefits specifically to the residents of the town of Rehoboth Beach, the city of Rehoboth Beach, and how, in very specific numbers, how much will it reduce their electricity bill? And also, not to waste time, I would like to have council review what are we giving up? What rights are we giving up were we to enter into such an agreement? Because I would hate to wait until we enter that discussion and not have that information before us. So if we could please do that, I'm fine deferring.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm in agreement.
So we have a majority that's willing to agree. So as of now, I'm tabling this topic, and to our constituents, just stay tuned. And when you see this on a future agenda, then might be your time to come back in front of us. Thank you very much, Mike. If you're wise, you leave, and understand
Mayor Mills.
you're headed to Dewey next. So we appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mayor, are we taking any public comment? I saw a hand.
No, we're not. Our next item of business is public hearing of an amended permit of compliance request and an amended supplemental permit of compliance request by Marcos Lopez of MBA Hospitality Group LLC for the modification of the floor plan of the restaurant serving alcoholic beverages known as Scooter Brown Southern Kitchen and Bourbon Bar, and to operate an outdoor dining patio serving alcoholic beverages on private space in conjunction with the restaurant known as Scooter Brown Southern Kitchen and Bourbon Bar, pursuant to Municipal Code Chapter 215-11, modifications of floor plan, and Section 270-19B, use restrictions, dining patios. The restaurant and outdoor dining patio are located at 70 Rehoboth Avenue, Suite 10, which is the second floor of First Street Station.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to remind you that in the beginning of the meeting, you said you were taking salary.com next.
As after the permit of compliance.
Oh, okay, I misheard you. Thank you.
So I want to turn it, is there representatives from Cooter Browns? Welcome. You can introduce yourself in a minute, and we'll get started. Alex, you want to take the lead here on identifying the purpose of this and what our support documents are, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief. There are a few things that need to be considered by this body. So turning first to, thank you. So turning first to City Code Section 215-2, permit required. No person shall operate, maintain, or carry on the business of a restaurant or a dinner theater governed by this chapter until the owner or lessee has received a permit of compliance from the city stating that said restaurant or dinner theater is in compliance with all the city's applicable zoning and licensing requirements. And then turning to 215-7, applicability, when the permit of compliance provisions apply. And subsection C of that statute states that where an existing restaurant or dinner theater, regardless of the date that said restaurant or dinner theater was established, where alcoholic liquor is sold or consumed, is being transferred to a new owner at the existing site, the present owner must file with the city manager documentation to prove that the floor plan of said restaurant or dinner theater is substantially the same as the most recent floor plan approved by the city. Such documentation shall include, but not be limited to, a scalable floor plan showing the location and size of the permanent seated dining area and bar. If the city manager determines that the floor area in respect to the total square footage of the restaurant or dinner theater and percentage of floor area devoted to bar area and percentage of floor area devoted to permanent seating dining area is substantially the same as the most recent floor plan approved by the city, no hearing shall be required pursuant to Section 215-5A. So then turning to 215-5A, hearing required, no applicant shall receive a permit of compliance or a supplemental permit of compliance from the city until after a public hearing, at which hearing interested parties and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard. And that's why we're here today. The city manager shall place said application on the agenda for a public hearing at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the mayor and commissioners, if the date of such meeting is more than 30 days from the date the application is filed with the city. And so there are certain factors that this body should consider in granting or denying a permit of compliance application. Subsection B of that statute, 215-5, subsection B states, a permit of compliance or a supplemental permit of compliance shall not be issued to the applicant or to the Delaware Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission except by the favorable vote of a majority of the members of the city commissioners. In reaching their decision, the commissioners shall consider the following factors, including but not limited to: 1, whether the applicant has demonstrated that the establishment's primary purpose will be that of a restaurant or dinner theater as defined in this chapter. 2, whether the establishment meets all of the city's applicable zoning and licensing provisions. 3, whether the establishment would be a detriment to the peace, order, and quiet of the neighborhood and the city. 4, whether the establishment will have an adverse impact on the neighboring properties or on the city of Rehoboth Beach, considering the impact on traffic, parking, and noise. 5, whether the applicant has made any false representation or statements to the city employees or the commissioners in order to induce or prevent action by the city, not only in regard to the pertinent pending application under this chapter, but also in regard to the issuance of a building permit or business license for the subject establishment. Excuse me. And so in the agenda, we're on agenda item 12. It looks like there are 6 support documents. I'd like to incorporate those documents by reference into this hearing. First off, there is a public notice, and that was posted on December 15th, 2023. The public notice was published in the Cape Gazette on Friday, December 22nd, 2023. On that same date, it was published in the Delaware State News, and it was provided to residents within 200 feet of the restaurant. Also, you'll see a building inspector report from building official Matthew Janis to the mayor and commissioners. That report is dated January 3rd, 2024, regarding application number 1123-09, Restaurant Permit of Compliance, Cooter Browns, 70 Rehoboth Avenue, Suite 210, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971. And then also in the agenda, you will see an application for permit of compliance. And pursuant to City Code Section 215-4, the building inspector verifies the completeness and accuracy of said application. The application indicates that it was received by the Office of the Secretary on November 30th, 2023. And the application indicates it is an application for a transfer of liquor license. There's a submittal checklist attached and signed by Marcos Lopez. The application includes a city stamp indicating the fee of $1,250 has been paid. Also included is the checklist for compliance with the zoning code, section 270-19, which is titled Use Restrictions. Additionally included is the checklist for compliance with zoning code section 270-19, titled Use Restrictions and specific to dining patios. There's also a sample menu for the restaurant in the package. There's no stamp on the menu indicating what day it was received. Perhaps it was received on the same day as the application of November 30th, but I'll defer to the building official or the city secretary on that. Also included is a two-dimensional drawing titled Construction Drawing for the New Cooter Browns Twisted Southern Kitchen, prepared by Arcology, Architecture and Design Services, a certified architect documenting the existing floor plan and documenting the proposed modifications to the floor plan. And I believe that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Very good. We'll go to Matt Janis with the building and licensing. Give you a report. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and happy Friday to all. I just want to give some brief supplemental information on why this is before you today. Mr. Lopez approached us, the Building and Licensing Department, to transfer the liquor license, and as a requirement of that transfer, a on-site inspection has to occur to verify that the floor plan remains unchanged from what previous approval was. Upon that inspection, we noted some differences in specifically the bar area seating, which isn't technically bar seating, is still dining area. Not the bar, but the seating above that was actually incorporated into the dining area above that without a handrail and separation. So the bar was separated from that seating. At some point under previous ownership, that area changed and was incorporated into the bar area. Still important to note that it's still seated dining area and not bar seating. But that's a substantial enough change from what we had on our records, as well as, some additional changes in the forward portion of the dining area that is facing the avenue, Rehoboth Avenue. Those changes were substantial enough to require, unfortunately, for the new owner, Mr. Lopez, a complete hearing today. With that said, I'd like to go ahead and read my report. Before you today is application 112309, Restaurant Permit of Compliance. It's Cooter Browns, located at 70 Rehoboth Avenue, Suite 210, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971. This is an application to transfer an existing liquor license to a new owner, amend a previously issued permit of compliance, and amend a previously issued dining patio supplemental permit of compliance. The following is a complete report for the application referenced above to be heard. Pursuant to Section 215-3, the applicant is MBA Hospitality Group, LLC, 70 Rehoboth Avenue, Suite 210, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971. The name of the restaurant is Cooter Browns Southern Kitchen and Bourbon Bar. The restaurant is a table service establishment serving lunch and dinner. The restaurant is indeed located at 70 Rehoboth Avenue, Suite 210 in Rehoboth Beach. Pursuant to the plan submitted, the following is true. The property is indeed located at 70 Rehoboth Avenue, Suite 210, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971. The structure is a two-story building with proposed area for permanent seated dining in a C1 central commercial zoning district pursuant to Section 27013C3D. A restaurant serving alcoholic beverages is a permitted use. Restaurant areas are as follows, and supported by the two floor plans that you should have there, one created by myself and one submitted by the applicant. Service area, kitchen facilities, storage, restrooms, employee stations, hallways, and utilities are proposed at 3336, or as you know, exist as. What I have calculated is 3,367 square feet. The dining area exists at 1854 square feet. I have it calculated 1801. The permitted seating dining area is 99. I've calculated 99. The bar area is proposed at 341 square feet. I have it calculated as 355 square feet. There is no dance floor. The bar seats as exist is 20. I have calculated 20. The gross restaurant square foot, the restaurant's gross floor area is, as shown on the drawing, as 5,751. I have a slight difference of 5,736 square feet. The ratio of bar to permanent seated dining is 20%, and I've calculated 20%. Pursuant to Section 215-1 definitions, there is a patio for this permanent compliance of 944 square feet, holding 58 seated patrons. The designated areas for proposed food storage and preparation are shown and labeled on the attached plans. The distance to the nearest property lines of the nearest church, public park, and residential lots are as follows. Westminster Presbyterian Church is approximately 974 feet by way of south on First Street. Lake Gerard Park is approximately 1,532 feet by way of north on First Street. And the nearest residentially zoned lot, zoned R2, is 27 South First Street, approximately 410 feet by way of south on First Street. The applicant has stated that the approximate percentage of revenue between the sale of alcohol and food is 30% alcohol and 70% food. Authorization for the city to investigate is attached. Written and dated declaration by the applicant is attached, and the fee of $1,250 has been paid. I certainly entertain any questions at this time.
Anybody? Commissioner Shanowski?
I do. Matt, you said that there were changes to the floor plan in the beginning, I guess the front area of that room.
Correct.
Can you just describe that in more detail?
Sure. It was a variation of what the tables and the amount of seating that was shown in that area were approved by. It looks to me like some potentially moved back the building into, obviously the seats that were incorporated with the dining area before moved to the bar, but then some of the seats up front looked to move back to the towards Wilmington Avenue to the back of the restaurant.
Okay, so the bottom image is what was there previously?
The bottom image is what I prepared as part of my report.
Okay. Ann, could you scroll back up to the...
I'm operating it.
Could you scroll up?
And so the top floor plan is what is shown by the architect as their calculations.
Okay.
The bottom floor plan is my confirmation, if you will, of those spaces that the architect has provided.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go on record that I don't think this is a substantial change, and I think it's ridiculous that we're having this applicant come before us. I think I've always made my thoughts on permit of compliances known, but just want to say it for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, in some of these drawings, the numbers are so small, they're either illegible or they differ from the written report. I just want to make sure the record reflects that the numbers in your the numbers in your written report are the valid numbers that we go by and take precedence over anything in the drawings. Is that true?
I believe that to be true, Mayor.
Okay. And they have no drawings for the barrier. That's a requirement, correct?
There is, the barrier is existing. I could certainly get them to solidify and give us a supplemental sheet on the barrier, but it is a railing that exists around the balcony of the second floor.
Well, I guess I'm just picky over this stuff. I think we ought to create a record for the new owner, but also subsequent owner. And if it's as easy as going back in the old file, that's fine, that would suffice. But the requirements show that we have the details of how the barrier is constructed. Is there any other comment from the?
Is the restaurant open currently and operating?
It is not. Yeah,
Is it because of this?
the seasonality of it, we wanted to get some paint it needed.
So I guess my question would be, this came in 2 months ago, it looks like.
It started the process 2 months
Months
ago
ago.
with inspections, withdrawing requirements, et cetera.
And to Commissioner Shanowski's point, the change that you noticed when you went in there, is it just simply, nothing physically changed, did there?
It was a complete table rearrangement, which in our code, unfortunately, pushes the applicant towards a permit of compliance
Because the
hearing.
tables were rearranged.
Correct.
So I concur with Commissioner Shanowski. That's I think, a little bit onerous.
And the counts were different as well. So
The what? I'm
the
sorry.
counts were different as well. They weren't more than, they were less than. But again, our code reads in a way that pushes the applicant forward, unfortunately,
Thank you.
or fortunately.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to associate myself
Yes.
with Commissioner Chernowski's comments and just reiterate that I think this is unnecessary.
And I'd like to opine on that for just a minute. What I'm hearing from Mr. Janis, and tell me if I've got this accurate, that you have no latitude other than because of our code, to handle it this way.
Yes, ma'am.
You have no latitude.
Correct.
My question to us is, what is it that we want? Do we want to allow the latitude or what? Because I'm not hearing that Building and Licensing had any other choice, unless I've got this incorrect, other than to bring it here.
Well, I think the appropriate time to talk that would be to put it on a future agenda if you'd like, rather than talk about it now.
I think if a wall was built or there was some other very drastic change to a floor plan, but we've had this discussion before.
Yes.
That the way our code is written, if you're having a birthday party and move to table and chairs, that's in violation, which is absurd. So that's where I think I'm coming from on this, is that we're talking about some tables that have moved around. We're not talking about somebody's built a wall or somebody's changed the physical structure, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think where I'm coming from, and Mayor, maybe what you're saying is the way to proceed, is it feels like this applicant is between a rock and a hard place, as well as building and licensing, because we've got a code that causes this. And the only ones that can fix that, am I correct, are the 7 of us.
Correct.
So we have to do something about this, or we have to stop complaining that it comes before us because he's trapped, thus trapping the applicant, right?
I'd be more than happy to speak on it if you don't mind. So to be honest with you, I'm Marcos Lopez. So I'm one of the owner-operators, excuse me, of the MBA Hospitality Group. We have one establishment in Maryland, which we opened about 14 months ago. We want to do a similar establishment here. We will be keeping much of that menu. What I mentioned to him is we will downsize because of seasonality. It's not really cost-effective to provide such a large menu, especially with us getting used to this market. So we need to understand what it is you enjoy. To speak to this process, it is extremely challenging, to be honest with you. In Maryland, we are allowed to move our tables. I've never come across, but I'm very new to this as well, but in speaking with folks from different counties throughout Maryland that I know that operate as well, this is something that they've never heard of either. So the rock and hard place was we inherited a place that I believe from his records, 2016 was the last floor plan. So we kind of fell on the sword on a situation, a landmine, however you want to describe it, which was not of our creation. So yes, I would love to be able to move forward if possible. I do think for someone who is coming into Rehoboth Beach, which we're extremely happy to be here and excited to have such a process drawn out strictly for railings and tables, it was disheartening, which it doesn't discourage us. Don't get me wrong, we're very excited to be here and move forward. But I would think if I was another business owner coming in, this would not be a hurdle I'd imagine I'd have to overcome, to be honest with you. And moving forward, we do feel like there's things that which I spoke to Matt, right now with us taking over business on October 6th and us being new restaurateurs, my partner and I were ex-bartenders, so there isn't a wealth of funds that we have to draw from. So to be able to do all the changes and going through this process right now, because I believe we started speaking at the end of October, is because we took over the 6th of October. We were on site October 13th, and at that point is when I began to reach out to Matt, to the liquor board, and he's been very helpful. It's not to speak to anyone trying to make it more challenging for us. I just feel that maybe there needs to be some consideration of updating some of the process, because I don't know if they're relative to this day and age, to be honest with you. So, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about that.
Well,
And that's how we'll proceed.
And Matt, you know I'm a bottom line kind of person. It's the bottom line to me. So I just want to make sure I've got this clear, and then back to the mayor to move us on. We are fixing these one by one, as opposed to doing a wholesale change to stop it to begin with.
Yes.
Thank you. Stop right there.
So, Mayor, I just want to clarify my point. I associated with Commissioner Czernowski's comments and with Commissioner Bennett's comments, it wasn't commentary about Matt's report, because what I heard in Matt's report was no objection. It wasn't that at all. It was the process. And from where I sit, it wasn't a good use of Matt's time or the applicant's time. And that is not a city we want to be.
If I could, I want to just thank some of my colleagues here, because I've been complaining about this for many, many years, and have really never gotten any support to change it on an ongoing basis in the future. You don't have to comment on this, but I always believed that there was some ability for the building and licensing to determine what was substantially different. I've always felt that there has been that ability to make a decision. You don't have to answer it today, but that's where I have always looked at these. Has it substantially changed or not?
I hate to be the ogre and shut down this conversation. Y'all are right. Let's look at it. I've agreed to look at it. But the purpose of his here today is we're in the middle of a public hearing, and I would like to continue so we can act on it, so we can get you hopefully approved and on your way. Is there any further comment up here
Would you like a
on the
motion?
permit of compliance? No, this is a public hearing. We're going to go to the public next. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak for or against this application for changes to floor plans, essentially? I think we've intimidated everybody, perhaps. If not, then yes, I'll entertain a motion. Ed, do you have?
Yeah, I've got it.
Because this is for two things, right?
Yep. Mayor, I move we grant a restaurant permit of compliance and a dining patio supplemental permit of compliance for Cooter Browns. I find the following to be true: that the proper application for a restaurant permit of compliance and dining patio supplemental permit of compliance has been filed, that the proper fee has been paid, that the proper notifications have been made, that all parties wishing to be heard have been heard, that the primary purpose is that of a restaurant based on their application and menus submitted, that the restaurant and dining patio meet the city's applicable zoning and licensing provisions, and that the restaurant and dining patio would not be a detriment to the peace, order, and quiet of the neighborhood and the city, that the restaurant and dining patio will not have an adverse impact on the neighboring properties or on the City of Rehoboth Beach, considering the impact on traffic, parking, and noise, that the application The applicant has made no false statements to the city's employees or the commissioners. Therefore, I make a motion that the city manager issue the applicant's permit of compliance for the operation of a restaurant and a supplemental permit of compliance for the operation of a dining patio to be associated with the restaurant Cooter Brown's.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Ed Chernowski and a second by Commissioner Don Preston to authorize city manager to issue applicants a permit of compliance for the operation of a restaurant and a supplemental permit of compliance for the operation of a dining patio to be associated with that same restaurant. Is there any further discussion? If not, let's just do all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, and the motion's carried unanimous. Congratulations. I imagine it takes you a day or
Well,
two to
welcome to Rehoboth
type.
Beach.
Happy to be here.
Welcome
Thank you
aboard.
very much for your time.
You're welcome to leave if you like. Thank you, Martin. Marcos. Excuse me.
So, Mayor, before you close this one, just for next steps, I heard you, it will be on an upcoming agenda, but does that mean there will be work that will need to be done by building and licensing before it comes to us, or by legal? What's the real next?
Well, I'll be talking with Evan, and he'll be directing
Okay.
his people on how to approach this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Where are we at here? Well, next in sequence, as I noted at the beginning of the meeting, we are going to have salary.com up here. The agenda item reads, presentation by salary.com on the classification and compensation study.
Mayor.
Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'm going to ask Ann to turn over the controls to the lectern PC. With us today is Greg Wolf. Greg Wolf is managing principal with the consulting practice at salary.com. Again, a brief background on the classification and compensation study. Again, under the city's charter, the city manager is required every 5 years to do a classification and compensation study. Our last CNC study was done in 2019, so we have come due for this study. And this year we did work with salary.com, who looked at not only the compensation of our employees, but the benefit package as well. And again, Greg will go through his presentation on the high points of the results of this study. So I'll turn it over to you, Greg, and thanks for being here with us today.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, City Manager, Commissioners. It really is nice to be here to be able to give you an overview of the recent study we completed, the compensation and benefits study we completed for the city of Rehoboth Beach. And really on kind of another point, I mean, this used to be a pretty typical in-person type of presentation, but since COVID, third time. So maybe we're getting back to even more of a normalcy to present and get back in front to kind of answer some of your questions. A special thanks to Jean Lee, as well as the city manager for being responsive, for being open to meetings during kind of key parts of the study to keep everything on schedule. So thank you so much, because it really does make a difference. Just a little bit about myself. I have been on kind of Gene's side for early in my career at Hallmark Greeting Cards, started out on the operations side before moving into HR and having a variety of roles. First, kind of then running the compensation program at Hallmark before joining the Hay Consulting Group, where I had an opportunity to work in the public sector as well as a private sector. In the public sector for a lot of cities, counties, states, federal entities going forward, and kind of bring that experience kind of to today. With what I'd like to try to cover in kind of our presentation is a little bit about salary.com, our organization, give you a quick project overview, the competitive pay analysis, and then get right into the benefits portion of it. Salary.com, again, we really are broken out into kind of three entities. I mean, we've collected compensation and benefits data for over 30 years. to be able to use kind of in most sectors, private and public sectors, to help organizations kind of provide that right balance for them from a competitive standpoint to be able to align appropriately to the market. We also have what we call just our software branch, where we have organizations purchase our software to help administer and manage their program, to kind of help streamline and help out with those pieces of it. And then I'm on the consulting side, working with organizations to put all the pieces together. Sometimes it's another set of hands, sometimes it's the expertise, sometimes it's the independence. And again, I think that's why we're here today. So. First, a quick project overview. We were asked to look at your compensation program and to ensure that your pay structure and programs, compensation and benefits, are externally competitive to the appropriate market. As it was mentioned, it's kind of been a 5-year cycle. There's been a lot that has gone on in the compensation world over the past few years. And I think it's appropriate to kind of look at that as you are during kind of this portion of it. And just high level, as we kind of get to this point and you start to unravel it from our consulting side, it's always interesting to see what we see. And I think you'll see throughout the report is that the City of Rehoboth and their administration and management of the compensation program has done a good job. We see some at this point where we get just wide dispersions in pay up and down and really way behind the market, and that's not the case at all. But I think you'll see that as we go through it. The steps in the project, survey participation. A big part of this study was a custom survey from other cities that are similar to the City of Rehoboth. And as I was coming in from the airport, I passed a lot of those cities. So it was kind of interesting just to see, and I probably should have checked them off the list just so it reminded me, but it was kind of nice to see those names and put a little bit of at least a street sign to the city. The data collection and the review by our consulting team to come up with it, really looking at the scope and labor market analysis. Where does the city most consistently recruit and compete for in talent, and it's a competitive environment. Not just in the public sector, private sector as well. And again, I know for some positions, you guys are kind of struggling with that. Then I want to look at just a overview, high level of the competitive pay analysis, and then talk a little bit about the comparisons that we made to the market on your benefits, and take a look at that. The survey participation, there's a list of the cities that participated, and as I had a chance to talk with Gene, and we do a lot of custom surveys at salary.com. We collect a bunch of compensation and benefits data, just traditionally organization to us. We have our comp analyst market data that I'll reference, where we kind of purchase a lot of surveys and we map all those together. But again, we had these cities and counties and towns, and the participation was awesome. Each of the cities that participated were very helpful. As we go through that process, it's looking at their matches and then following up with them as questions arose. But these are the 11 participants, which included the City of Rehoboth. Just high level, always the question comes up is, oh gosh, we don't have data for all the jobs that were included in the survey, because based on the antitrust guidelines, one, they recommend kind of a survey conducted by a third party, which again was totally separate from the City of Rehoboth. The City of Rehoboth only saw the overall averages. The data needs to be at least 3 months old, so it was as of August in kind of getting the data kind of to you today. And then there has to be at least 5 organizations, and not one of those could make up 25% of the comparison to be used in the survey. So those couple of those positions that you had did not meet that criteria, so were excluded. We looked at some of the raw data because we might have 3 respondents or 2 or 4, and tried to kind of work that into the survey as appropriate, but not all jobs were matched. We received the information, all the documentation from the city. And then just took a look at the market, and then just the comparisons of the labor market on where you recruit for. And again, in taking a look at that survey data as well as our proprietary database, our comp analyst market data, just to get a different perspective. You know, obviously your primary, I mean, it doesn't get any better apples to apples looking at those cities that you're comparing to, are we competitive? But also take a half a step back, take a look across the state of Delaware, looking at some government entities of similar scope and size. You know, based on the documentation, you know, we took a look at the survey matches, we went through those. And really, as we kind of look at it, we try to give the city a view of the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentiles of the market. 25th means that, you know, you position that 75% of the data points are higher than that position. The 50th meaning 50-50, you're right in the middle of the market. And then the 75th percentile would mean that there's only 25% of organizations within that data set that would pay more than that point in it. From a benefit standpoint, we used our databases to take a look regionally, the Northeast region, and the other government entities to compare your key elements of the incentive of the benefits plan. And in that second bullet, it kind of highlights just those really kind of key elements that really determine the overall competitiveness of a benefits program from organization to organization. It's your life benefits, your health benefits, dental, vision, PTO, and retirement and pension programs. And there's always a few other ones that become important to organizations, but these are really the main ones that provide the overall focus and competitive levels. Well, let's take a look at just some of the pay level comparisons. Approximately 35 jobs, 59 employees at the city. We use the peer market comparisons as the primary source, and completed kind of the analysis based on that. The way that it came out is you take a look at the competitive pay analysis, a summary of it. When you take a look at your current base pay compared to the market reference point, which is the 50th percentile of the market, you get a comp ratio. Well, what's the comp ratio market index? It's your current average pay to the 50th percentile of the market. 94.2% is kind of what led me to make the position that, you know, you're paid competitively against the market that you're competing against most directly. So again, at this point, it's not always. Sometimes we see comp ratios, you know, much lower. We see some that are higher, but that's really kind of what we would say an organization that's in that range tends to show, as you dig into it, in organizations that's administering it, managing it, and again, trying to kind of hit all the points to keep the city in a nice position as far as their employee count. When you take a look at the spread, just the bar chart, the less than 80% would be those organizations that are not paid or those positions, which is accounted to, that would be paid really below that spread of 81-20. A majority of your jobs, 13, would fall into that 80 to 100. And the second most common would be in that 101 to 120. Why that spread? You know, organizations, there's some dispersion in how organizations pay employees. Sometimes it's the job they're in, it's the experience level that they have, it's how the progression, it's what the market's doing to bring people in, and all those adjustments. So when you take a look at it, over to the right, the pie chart, 87% would be at market. You know, within that range of 81-20, you have 9% below, and then 4% above. Okay, when we take a look at our database and just saying, hey, let's compare other government entities across Delaware that are similar, kind of the comp ratio being pretty similar. Again, that 81 to 100 still being the most frequently number of job counts that where your jobs fall. Kind of secondarily, you have a few more jobs under the minimum, a few more over the maximum, and then again, quite a few in that 101 to 120 reference comparison. let me kind of touch on benefits as we go through this. It's based on information that we received on your summary plan benefit descriptions. We used our benefits survey, which is including in comparison of not-for-profit sector, specifically government entities in Northeast region, and then those elements that I kind of referenced earlier that determine the level of overall competitiveness. And here's just a plan observation. For the most part, when you look at market or leads market, you're in a competitive position overall. When you take a look at some of your health benefits, your HMO as well as your PPO, you know, look at dental, vision. The two that I just wanted to highlight a little bit would be the life benefit and the PTO accumulation. And when you take a look at your life insurance benefit, almost all organizations offer some portion of some kind of life insurance. A flat dollar amount, what the city's doing here, is not as prevalent. It's about 8 or 9% of organizations that would just say, hey, we're going to have a life insurance benefit that's X. A majority of them, 80-some percent, 85%, would have a multiplier of their base pay, which is most common. So it's not as competitive when you kind of look at it. Typically, it's 1.5 to 2 times base pay is where organizations fall out. Sometimes it's 1.75 would be kind of probably a good median comparison for those that go that way. So that's one area where, when we look at it, slightly kind of would lag the market. And then when you take a look at, when you look at your dental and PPO, more competitive, how you take a look as your plan becomes more competitive. Okay, well, that's kind of the overview that I have. Are there any questions that I can kind of try to answer?
Commissioners, anything? Any members of the public have a question? Comment? Very good. Evan? Shane?
Nothing more from us. Greg, again, could take certainly any questions you, the commissioners, public might have on the study itself, and then Jean would have more of the specific answers to any of the specific questions about benefits or anything. But again, I think more discussion on this as we present the FY 2025 budget. But again, I want to thank Jean and Greg for being here. Especially, I want to thank Jean for being such a wonderful project manager on this classification and compensation study. Jean is our human resource payroll administrator. She started with us as a part-time employee, and she has very quickly worked her way up through the ranks, and in my eyes has been a wonderful asset to the city, and an especially amazing human resource administrator. So thank you, Jean.
Mayor, I do have a question before we let him go. I'm reluctant to ask this, but I feel like I have to ask this. On your the salary piece of your analysis, I'm struggling with it because it doesn't feel like it matches the reality that we are living right now. We are losing employees to much higher paying positions that are equal in responsibility to the positions that they have. And that isn't consistent with what your results show. Okay. So I'd like to understand why this is. If you have any thoughts about that, because we are really struggling with this, and we're handling these things, individually, but it feels it's a little uncomfortable. And then hearing this, I'm feeling even more uncomfortable.
So if I can just answer that a little bit, dealing with the employees that we have lost in that, we're not losing a large portion because of pay. We've lost a couple because of pay, but that's not, we've had more, they've advanced themselves out of their position, or they've retired or something like that. It's not, we haven't had that many that took big pay raises in the same position to leave here. That being said, though, we also only did 35 positions here, and if you saw, it was 56 employees in this study. So we had to pay for 35 positions. So to do every position we have closer to 50 positions. So we had to take this study and put it to all of our other positions as well. So as you'll see in the budget, we are increasing almost everybody's salaries. More of our lower level people have to be increased much more significantly than our higher positions are. But this was just a starting point to figuring out where the rest of the positions and everything were. So we got an idea of where our jobs were that were low, and then spread it across everything else and analyzed it. And you'll see in the budget meetings where we had to bring up actually some of the lower paid jobs significantly, if that kind of helps to answer your question.
I think the other thing I wanted to add to that too is, Gene, if you could talk a little bit about the relationship that we have now with Salary.com and Comp Analysis, and being able to, as we update job descriptions to reflect current duties, responsibilities, certifications, any changes to job descriptions, and our ability to then survey the market and look at that salary information.
Yep, so like he said that Salary.com has more than just the consultant side. So you saw the consultant side here today, but we also purchased the data side. So we also have Comp Analysis, which I have another consultant that works with me there. But we have the ability, and it's on a 5-year cycle, to go in and we can pull data that is 3 months old at the first of every month, and we can update a job description, we can pick a new position. If it's beyond what I think I can scope, we can use that consultant to help get some data like I did. I used them for the current data that I got for the city manager. They helped us get that and scope it out, and their professionals help us with that as well. So we also have that part of it. And over the next 5 years between now and the next study, we will continue to use that information for any changes we have in positions. And we are constantly reviewing our job descriptions, updating them. You know, is there different licensing? Is there different requirements? Is the city evolving? Do we need something different? So with now having an actual HR position at the city, which we didn't have before this year, we have the ability to really fine-tune this stuff more than we did before. So we are really making strides forward in this stuff.
Listen, certainly appreciate very much what you know. I've said this to you directly. Appreciate what you're doing. I'm just struggling a bit with what the reality is that we are all feeling versus what this data shows. And Evan, you just said something that triggered a secondary question, and it may not be appropriate for right now. In this analysis, did you use current job descriptions?
Yes.
And if you did, are they all up to date? Yes. Okay.
Gene actually put a lot of work in going into the study before the study even commenced, sitting down with every single department head and going through every single job description and updating every single job description. One of the things I had mentioned at the Personnel Committee was 5 years ago when we did the classification and compensation study, that a large portion of that project actually involved developing job descriptions and updating those job descriptions. We did what was referred to as a position description questionnaire. So every employee filled out a questionnaire that asked them about their job duties, their responsibilities. This is what your job description says, but what do you really do? And then it also involved actually sit-down interviews with all those employees to run through those job responsibilities. So I think a lot of that also helped feed into this, but again, a lot of time was spent before the study even commenced to update those job descriptions as well.
Thank you, Evan.
Hey, Commissioner, just to respond just briefly, as we work with a lot of organizations, I mean, times have changed from a market standpoint prior to the pandemic. I mean, there was a lot more kind of predictability as you go. What you might be alluding to a little bit, and again, I know there's some discussion about how many employees truly left because of a lot more pay for the same job, but that's not uncommon in today's environment. What we see some organizations, again, because we get to see kind of behind the scenes a little bit, there's some organizations that say, hey, you know, we've lost people and we're just going to go out and buy somebody. You know, hey, we're going to pay 15% more. Not that it's happening here, but we see, I've seen that more than I have throughout many, many years of my career. And I try to kind of consult with organizations is, hey, we don't want to overreact. I mean, there's, if you have unlimited budgets, you know, pay at the 75th percentile, you're still going to have people leave for whatever reason, but it's going to be less. But that's not anything that I would recommend. It's more kind of as Gene was saying, hey, just kind of monitoring it. What's really the facts? Who are we losing? And again, many organizations are having trouble kind of recruiting, so it's a little bit different. But again, not that I want to recommend here that, you know, you need to do anything kind of out of the ordinary. Some of what you're experiencing is just a lot more prevalent. And
I guess, thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. It sort of level sets things a bit for me. My reaction to it is, however, in an organization that is key person dependent like ours is, when you lose somebody, or you potentially could lose somebody, and it is centered on pay, and we've had those instances, and I've only been a commissioner for half a year, but it has dominated a significant amount of our time since I've been here. It feels very uncomfortable. So I hear you. I still have a question mark.
Sure. Just two other things I would add to that too that I think is important. The first is that Gene and I have met with every single department head to review the initial results of the classification and compensation study. We've had the dialogue with those department heads. The way that Gene has tried to structure our new pay scale is so that it slightly leads the market, is a little bit higher than what we saw in the market, again, because we want to be competitive. The other thing that we also took into consideration, which is very important, and that is if an employee in a position leaves, what realistically would we pay to fill the position? Because that is a critical question to answer as part of this as well. So we've taken that approach into consideration, again, with every single meeting that we have had and every single consideration of all of these positions too, so.
I would say, actually, for me, it makes me feel better that we're creating all sorts of data-driven baselines. And what I think that will do for us as we move further into the more detailed budget discussions is help us to understand what's the impact of all this on recruitment and what is the real impact of all this on our budget, not only for this year, but a couple of years in the future. So I'm feeling a little more underpinned with data, if that's reasonable.
Yeah, Commissioner, just to react to that, not react to that, but to maybe add some thoughts. I certainly do appreciate this as we go into the budget discussions. I just can't ignore
Don, you keep pushing that
what
microphone away
what
from
we've been
me.
feeling lately. That's all I'm saying. It's and it's not to say that this isn't super helpful, because it is. I mean, because we haven't had it. So having it certainly will, I think, add to some lively discussions.
For me, I guess I'm unsure about, based on what we've been given today, the quality of the data and how relatable it is to local governments. You know, for example, on the first or second page, you have numbers about how many countries, years of experience, how many organizations you survey, but you don't specifically mention how many are in our industry, local or municipal governments. And I know there's a lot of other organizations out there that probably have more years of experience in surveying municipalities. I know that you mentioned that in your competitive analysis, the more broad one, not the peer analysis, do you purchase other surveys from other companies? Did I hear you correctly?
yeah, what we do, and would be our comp analyst market data, what you're referencing. We purchase surveys that we consider kind of the best surveys in public sector, private sector, all industries, and we come in and we do our work internally to map all those jobs from one survey to another and use the average of what we consider the best, most consistent surveys in the market to be able to kind of make our comparisons here, just to give another view of not just our survey sources that come in directly to us, but kind of in an accumulation of some of the top surveys in all sectors. So you're correct.
Okay, so you're getting the Towers Watson or whatever they're called now, Mercer, Ion, all of the big companies, you're getting that information as well?
And again, not able to kind of, single out any other person because, it went through a significant court case to be able to kind of say, hey, is that reasonable that a company could buy other surveys, average them, have a data source? And they said, yes, as long as it's salary.com's data, it's not a Mercer.
Right, right.
But it's, to answer, yeah, we look at, and we would definitely consider them, kind of top survey firms for sure.
I think this is probably a question for you, Evan. This is more broad. My expectation is we're going to get a more granular report on position specific or no?
So I think we're still working on that. Again, a lot of that information will be available as part of the budget. We had just received some information recently last week, and then we just finished meeting with the department heads as well. So it's still work in progress. Gina and I still have, I think, a couple positions that we're looking at as well. But yes, I think more detail can be provided as part of the budget meetings.
And Jean, I just want to make sure that I've got this correct in my head, that am I accurate that we finally have now complete and accurate JDs across the board for the city of Rehoboth Beach?
Yes, so I started looking at job descriptions. Like Evan said, we got them in our last comp study, a bare bones version. In February, I started working on those. Every single department has been touched. Every job description's been touched. Every qualification we need for them. We did a lot of work to make sure our job descriptions were correct.
And I guess what I'm trying not to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway to make sure I've got it correct, that prior to that, we honestly did not have this completely as locked down as it is now.
Yes, so I'd say over the last 10 years, we've been working towards this and we're there.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
yep.
Anybody else? Very good. Evan, thank you. Jean, thank you. And the screen, please. Our next item of business is old business B. Discuss amendment to the agreements, plural, of lease between the city of Rehoboth Beach and the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society to change the requirements that one member of the Board of Commissioners shall be a member of the Historical Society Board of Directors. If you recall, the intent of this was brought up first to delete the requirement that there shall be a commissioner appointed as a board member. In the last meeting, when we got together to consider that, we reconsidered, and instead of making shall mandatory, we decided to change it to may as optional. And I believe that's what's in front of us, right? Now,
Correct.
if you would explain, there's two documents in front of us here.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So there are two documents in front of us today. As you may recall from the last meeting, there was discussion regarding the anti-hazard lease, which dates back to the 1970s. And in both the anti-hazard lease and in the Historical Society museum referred to as the old ice house, that lease, there are provisions that mirror each other in both of those agreements now that are proposed, such that the commissioners may have one of the commissioners serve on the board of the Historical Society.
So there's two documents here. One is the First Amendment to lease between City of Rehoboth and the Historical Society.
Correct.
Dated November 17th, 1976.
Correct. And that relates to the Anna Hazard building, the one from
And
1970s.
then the second one is entitled Reformation of Lease, but they're both addressing the amendment from shall to may.
That's right, yeah. I recycled the reformation of lease from last meeting. I thought it'd be more efficient than creating a whole new document. I simply updated paragraph 21.
This November 17, 1976 refers to the first lease?
Yes, that
Because
refers.
that's not today. Okay.
That's correct.
So are there any questions? One thing I would say, there's a reference to Exhibit A, but there's no Exhibit A attached.
Exhibit A refers to the 1976 lease, the Anna Hazard lease, and we can certainly get that circulated or retroactively embedded in the agenda if that's the desire of the city.
Well, I'm comfortable with retroactively embedding it so that we can act on this. Actually, our agenda doesn't say vote, so this is just FYI. And if it's all right, we can keep this off the February workshop agenda and put it on the February voting meeting. So there'll be a month lag before we see it again. So this is more informational. Are there any further questions on it? Anybody from the public? All righty, thank you.
It's just on the Anna Hazard, or?
No, there's two there. The one, this one that's on your screen there. See, it says, it's referencing amendment to the original lease dated 1976. That has to do with the Anna Hazard.
Right.
And then the second one, let's see.
That's the reformation of lease.
Yes.
And that's the one that goes out through 2053?
Correct.
Yeah, you brought that up before.
I'm not going to bring it up again.
We didn't. Well, unless you want to extend it beyond 53, I'm comfortable with just leaving it
No.
alone.
I think 2053 is too far out.
Mayor, you said we're not acting on this today?
No, we're going to vote I'm going to put this on the regular meeting for a vote. The agenda is not correct to be able to
I'm
vote.
sorry, that's understood.
Yep. So I don't see anybody else take you up on your mantle, Tim. All righty, we'll put this on the regular February agenda. With that, we go to the next item of old business, which is consider an ordinance to amend municipal code 9239 parallel parking, increasing the citation amount for violations of parallel parking from $15 to $50, and section 9280 violations and penalties by authorizing a one-time adjustment to the citation amount for certain violations of overtime parking from $30 to $15 if paid within the first 7 days of citation issuance. Let me find that.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners will recall that these two topics were topics of discussion by the parking department, first at their end-of-season report to the commissioners, and then at a subsequent meeting before the board. The recommendation was to make the fine for parallel parking and head-in parking the same at $50. So what this ordinance before you does is, again, increases the fine for parallel parking in the wrong direction, increases it from $15 to $50. And then additionally, also what was discussed was under 9280 violations and penalties. This is for any violations of 9275, which is overtime parking. If anyone fails to pay for parking using the appropriate license plate, they will be given a one-time reduction from $30 to $15 if paid within the first 7 days after the day that the violation occurs. Both of these topics have been before the commissioners, I think, twice now, so before you is a draft ordinance for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? I want to let you know that I missed the special meeting on January 9th. It had a lot of the parking issues in it. I did watch the tape, so I'm very familiar with your all's perspectives and opinions on a lot of those parking issues. I also attended the other meeting where I made comment on this particular one. Is there any further comment on this?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
Evan, has anything changed in this document since we last reviewed it?
No, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Well, then I'm going to go to the members of the public. Anybody have any comments to make on this particular ordinance? All righty, back to the commissioners. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ed Chernowski, who's making it hard on me, and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to amend Chapter 92 of the Municipal Code of Rehoboth by amending Section 9239 relating to parallel parking and amending Section 9280 violations and pending. It is in front of us. Is there any discussion? I hinted before the last time we talked about this that I was not comfortable with going from 15 to 50. I don't think the amount is a deterrent in itself. I don't think there's any drivers read the code before they come into town to see what the fine is before they choose to park in the wrong direction. I think it's a deterrent just to get a ticket. So I'm again, as I hinted before, I will not support this one. Is there any further discussion?
I do not support it either due to the length of time. I still believe 7 days is too short. I would have advocated 10 days.
And you've brought that up twice before
right.
now too. And I agree with that, but I'm voting no anyhow.
Mayor, I have in previous discussions supported this, but I have changed my mind because I believe that this should be part of a bigger discussion about parking and not taken piecemeal. So I will also be voting no.
Is there any further discussion?
I would like to ask, based on Commissioner Preston's remarks, when would that discussion on a broader level actually take place?
Are you asking me?
No.
Oh.
Well, I do, in listening to your tape of the parking issues, the January 9th special meeting, what was clear to me, and I thought articulated very well, is that for a lot of our parking issues, and specifically and especially for setting parking rates, changing parking rates, and other things, that we need to be scheduling those meetings a year out ahead of time. So the city manager and I will start to be putting some of that on our agenda planner. But that's so sometime in the future, but it has to be far enough out.
Well, you know, Mayor, I think if we started now, we might meet that deadline.
You know, this has come up many times regarding trash, parking issues. We keep commending the staff on doing such a great job and how much we value them. And then they make recommendations to us of low-hanging fruit. We're all in favor of it one day, and then a week later, some of us are now not in favor of it. It really does not go to show that we respect the staff, and I think as Commissioner Sharp may say, we need to start walking the talk.
Well, with all due respect, I suspect that comment is directed to me, and that's fine. I appreciate that.
Not just you.
I don't think that's fair. You know, we all have a different perspective. We don't have to, just like our committees, you know, they have perspectives, they share it with us. We have our perspectives. I think we've got to do what we believe is right in our hearts, not acting on that because we want to please our committee members or our department heads.
Yeah,
So
and
let-
Mayor, just to be clear, I do have high regard for the staff. And certainly Evan's leadership is something that I commend. That said, I have been convinced by other members of this board that looking at parking holistically is actually much more important than dealing with these things individually. And therefore, I have changed my mind.
That's fine. So I'm going to call the question. We're going to do an individual vote. Commissioner Preston, how do you vote?
I vote no for the
A
reasons
vote
stated.
and a vote.
Stated.
You don't have to give reasons if you don't want, but that's a no against amending the ordinance before us. Commissioner Sharp?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Sernowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
I'm voting no, and I've been consistent with my concern about the 7 days versus 10 days or 2 weeks. So while I agree that we need to do something regarding parallel parking, I think that the 7 days is what's triggered the no for me.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Markert?
I vote aye.
And the chair, as I said, votes no, so that vote does not carry. It's a 3-3. With that, we'll move on to the next item.
Mayor, before you move.
Yes.
I would like to get a reaction from the commissioners today on immediately after our budget realities set in and we pass whatever budget we're going to this year, we immediately launch into parking, a holistic view of parking. We have demonstrated it takes us like molasses to get things done. So I do not want to wait until postseason because I could almost predict that we'll be right back where we are today and we won't have recommendations holistically for the 2025 season. So I implore the scheduling to take a look at how this could start immediately, because I feel the frustration building of not getting things done. And I just am wondering if others would like to launch in immediately or
Yes.
not.
From my seat, yes.
Other seats?
Yes, I brought it up last meeting. When are we going to have the discussion? Because I was even concerned that we've deferred this year until after the Rossi study.
Well, and I like the way we're working, that you bring it up, I'll nail it down as to when it needs to start. So I'm going to say May of 2024, we begin, unless you want to shoot for April, May at the latest, that we start holistic discussions about overall approach, philosophy, et cetera, regarding parking.
Agreed.
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 On this related, this particular ordinance, Evan, if I could ask a question. I don't disagree with Commissioner Bennett at all. 7 days is very short. Was 7 days used in here because that is consistent throughout all of the parking citations?
That's correct, Commissioner. So we have every citation, if unpaid, escalates in a prescribed period. So the first escalation occurs at 7 days. So before the first escalation occurred, we wanted to offer the one-time reduction for any violation of that particular section. Otherwise, if we wait, then we are reducing the original citation amount, but we're also eliminating the escalation too. And sometimes that can be a little bit confusing. They received a ticket for $30 and now we're telling them it's $45. So for simplicity, ease of understanding and communication, we just thought appropriate. Again, within that first 7 days before it escalates further, we have an opportunity to have the one-time reduction.
And thank you.
All righty. On to the next item of old business, which is, shoot, I got rid of it.
MOU.
Discuss and consider an ordinance to amend Municipal Code 9235, parking, stopping, or standing in median strip. 9269 parking meter zones designated, 9273 parking meter fees, 92-263 issuing of parking permits, 92-264 special considerations and exceptions, and 92-275 issuing of motor scooter parking permits. So I'd like a brief synopsis of
Sure.
each one of these, if you would, please.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. The ordinance before you was drafted as a result of the special meeting that was held on January 9th, 2024, where there was consensus reached to proceed with the four recommendations that were included as part or as of the agenda on that special meeting. And that special meeting covered miscellaneous topics as presented by the parking department. Just to recap those four topics, the first was to establish a new parking program for the Deauville Beach parking lot. The second was to eliminate the scooter parking permit application. The third was to consolidate the weekday daily and weekend daily permit into a single daily permit. And the fourth was to prohibit parking upon medians on Scarborough Avenue. So again, at that special meeting that was held on the 9th, there was consensus to have the staff move forward with drafting the ordinances to reflect the changes that were discussed. And I can briefly run through that ordinance that is before you. First amendment is to Chapter 92, Section 35. Again, this addresses the prohibition on parking on Scarborough Avenue medians. In that meeting, we discussed a lot of the concerns that we have, the police department has, the parking department has with people parking illegally on Scarborough Avenue. Currently, the only sort of notice that we have right now is there is a sign at the entrance to Scarborough Avenue off of Christian Street that mentions not to park on the median. During the discussion with the commissioners, there was interest in making this violation a towable offense. So what we have done is we have retained the violation section with a fine in there. I did meet with the police department and they thought it was necessary to include that in there just so that they have the ability to fine or tow. And then we've also added Part C, which is language that's used elsewhere in the code for another towable offense. So again, that just says that any police officer within the performance of their duty may cause can remove or cause to be removed at the expense of the owner such motor vehicle. And that's in the event that the operator is unable, unwilling, or unavailable to move such motor vehicle immediately. Again, just a quick background, concerns about parking on the median strip because it is not a designated parking area. It's city property, it's all grass. We also have a lot of parking there during special events, and it creates a safety concern for us, mainly in that if people do not park appropriately, they will block the travel lane, and then that impacts potentially fire and EMS response times on that street. So that was the first proposed, and if you'd like, Mayor, we can take it
If
one
you
at
don't
a time.
mind, there's actually 6 different ordinance change, or sections of ordinance change here. I'd like to do them one at a time, just as you did.
Sure.
And then, and after you give your explanation, I'd like to open it to the commissioners, see if they have any comments. And then I'd actually like to go to the members of the public on that specific one. So that's six times we're going to do that.
And the only thing I would add to that is there are, as the mayor mentioned, 6 amendments. However, it does pertain to 4 topics. So the one topic is Deauville Beach parking program, and so there are multiple sections of the code that has to be amended to implement that new program. So we can address that topic in those relevant sections at that time
I'd like
too.
to do each topic independent.
Sure.
Mayor, may I just offer one quick comment? Depending on one's definition of consensus, Evan, you said that in the special meeting there was consensus to move forward with these. Right. My definition of consensus, and I appreciate, Mayor, when you say unanimity, because that to me is an important word. There was not consensus to move ahead with all of these items, just for the record.
No, and watching the videotape indicates that some of you disagreed, some of you agreed with the different things.
Yeah.
That's why we're here at a voting meeting to again.
Thank you.
And there's a different dynamic. I'm here and somebody else, another commissioner is gone. So are there any comments on this specific ordinance by anybody? All righty. So Now, can we, I guess we'd go through each one of these, and if, because I would prefer to vote on them independently 6 times.
Sorry, Mayor, they're presented as one single document.
No, they can be divided up, but because what's going to happen is I may not agree with something, which means you have to vote down the whole thing, and that's not the right thing for us to do. But let's go through them all and see how we all feel. So, what's your next one, Evan? This 9269.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Chapter 92, Section 9, this designates parking meter zones for the City of Rehoboth Beach. So Part D, what we have done is added a new parking meter zone. It's a 10-hour parking meter zone, and it's as follows. The streeter parking area would be the Deauville Beach parking lot, and the location is the Deauville Beach parking lot between the hours of 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. The discussion at the special meeting was to consider having Deauville Beach become a metered public parking lot and to try and reflect the existing meter system as much as possible. It's important to note that down at Deauville Beach, the police department does close the lot at 8 p.m., so we would not have parking beyond 8 p.m. So thus the meter zone here established would be a 10-hour parking beginning at 10 a.m. and ending at 8 p.m. Also, if you'd like, Mayor, I could go on. There was another amendment that pertains to this topic, subsection 9273. This establishes the fee for parking. So $3 per hour spaces, 25 cents for each 5-minute period. And what we do here is we add the Deauville Beach parking lot to that location of the code specifying the cost.
You know, I listened to this, and this was the lengthiest conversation at that meeting, wasn't it? Perhaps the most contentious. And not everybody at that meeting agreed with this or not, but, you know, I think somebody mentioned it during that meeting that it's almost a shame that we changed it pre-2018. It had its own permit system. And I tell you, the locals love that system. Even though it cost them more dollars for a separate permit, what it did is it reduced the number of people end up going to Deauville, which meant there were fewer cars, but fewer people on the beach. And they love that thing. And then the previous mayor and council changed it. And now we've got this. And I was reluctant to even take a side on it until I started thinking about this in this way, that from, I guess, where is it, Hickman North, the first blocks from Hickman North are all metered parking spaces. And so why shouldn't Deauville Beach parking be metered space also the same? So in other words, you want the premium parking space, even if you're a local, you have to pay the meter. And the same would be true at Deauville. You have to pay the meter, or you park up on Surf Avenue or wherever your closest spot is on Henlopen and do it free with your parking permit. So I think I'm fine with it. My biggest hesitation is we haven't resolved the lease situation for Deauville Beach. So I really hate to even act on this today until we've resolved that issue. So,
Mayor, can you refresh my memory, or anybody on the commission, weren't there some additional steps that needed to be taken relevant to talking to state officials or outreach for Deauville?
yeah, and that's ongoing, yes.
So it's not been completed yet?
No.
Okay.
I can say that I got a number of comments about this pertinent to Deauville Beach, and I'm just saying if we feel like we want to discuss this further, can we do that? So I would suggest.
You might be asking, Evan, is there a deadline? Does this have to be resolved today, or can it be kicked down the road a little bit?
Well,
Is
it
that what
couldn't-
you're asking?
Pretty much.
Let me just put a fine point on it. It wouldn't be kicked down any further than May of 2024, when we start talking about holistic view of parking.
Correct.
Would that be right?
Correct.
So if we abandon it today, no changes will be made for this upcoming season.
Because today you need us to act on it.
Correct.
But by May meetings, we should have the information that we don't have today, relevant to Deauville Beach and the state.
I would.
I don't know.
confident in that.
I don't know how that's relevant, but
Okay. I just think it's information that's important of how we view Deauville in general. But it may not be to others.
Well, it is, because what if we were to say, fine, DENREC, you take it?
That doesn't, I don't think that has to hold us up. I guess my hesitancy to do it was, I just wanted to resolve the whole lease issue, especially with respect to parking and potential revenues that
We're
we
saying the
might
same thing,
generate.
Mayor. I'm with you.
Well,
And I think they're related, I guess, and I would like to know better about what the lease arrangement's going to be before we decide on this, pertinent to Deauville.
Any members of the public? Nope. Going once?
What, Commissioner Markert, what concern or what additional comments did you receive that we haven't are they comments we
I
haven't
don't feel
talked
we've
about?
got enough public comment on it, and at least from the people that I spoke to. And I think they were of the understanding that we were not going to be deciding that today. So that's my concern. And if there's some hesitancy or on the part of the commission, so noted.
I don't know if I got the same communications that you did, Commissioner Marker, but I got several communications as well, alleging that we were trying to slip this one through without the public's knowledge, which is not something I like to hear. I don't necessarily agree with it, but if that's the perception that's out there, it's not a good one. So it wouldn't bother me to pass on this. I have a question for the solicitor. Is it possible for us to break this one ordinance apart and vote on it separately?
Yes, you could have a conditional vote. You don't have to take the ordinance at face value. You could omit certain lines. I believe sections 2, 3, and 5 relate to Deauville. Is that correct, Evan? So we could craft a motion. I'm happy to help with that if needed, and just address the median parking and the other item in here, the weekly parking passes, if that's the desire.
Thank you.
We need a motion for that, or do you want to continue?
Well, just whoever makes the original motion either makes it in entirety, and then we vote it down based on
well, why
not
don't we
wanting
finish-
one thing.
Why don't we finish going through the changes
Yeah.
first?
Can we be clear, though, about this Deauville Beach situation? Because I'm a little confused here. So if we decide we're going to discuss this further or move along,
Nothing happens.
nothing, so then we're back to the old system of selling passes and everything there, which we heard from the experts is not a good system, right? I think that's what we were told. So,
I think
Okay.
there could be a possibility of putting this on the February workshop and February regular meeting. I'd want to talk to the parking department about that too. But again, if we want to defer on the parking topics until we have that larger discussion, thinking of 2025, and then also we're thinking of the Deauville Beach lease, and we want opportunity and time to work through that lease as well. I don't want to say that it will definitely be on in February if there's a likelihood that it will just be deferred to a future meeting and a larger discussion.
And
Evan, let's move on to section 4, reference section 92-263, I guess. Is that next?
That's correct. 92-263 pertains to parking permits. And so again, the recommendation here was to consolidate weekday daily and weekend daily into a single permit, and that permit fee be $20.
And so the synopsis of that effectively is that all single-day permits will be $20.
correct.
Which means an increase from the current $15 for weekday passes.
For weekday, yes.
Weekday pass, okay.
And this would support simplicity?
Yes.
Yes.
But also piecemealing it.
Yes.
92-264, I believe, is next, Evan?
Yep. 92-264, again, is related to Deauville Beach. And so that just established a separate fee that was for vehicles in excess of the required length. So that pertains back to the Deauville Beach consideration. So
that's one of the sections, 2, 3, and 5 that would be deleted if, or omitted if we took a group vote and decided to not put that in. Section 6 is referencing subsection 92-275.
yes, and this recommendation was to eliminate the requirement to fill out a form to obtain a scooter parking permit. So we've just eliminated any reference to it being necessary to fill out that form ahead of paying the fee for the scooter parking permit. So just eliminate the form in entirety.
So it was, what I heard from the meeting is that, you buy one of these machines, scooter, or you go to the DMV.
Yes.
They license it based upon certain criteria,
Yes.
weight and CC of the engine. And then when you come to town, you're merely purchasing a scooter ticket.
Yes.
You don't have to fill out any information.
Right.
It's just, you're just paying your money and you're getting it.
Yes. Just like we do with any other permit.
So it's, according to June at that meeting, it's saving a lot of trees essentially because all the paperwork is looked at the beginning and then it has no use.
Right.
Okay. Any members of the public have anything on anything? All righty. Well, I would entertain a motion, whether it's for this in entirety or entertaining the motion omitting sections 2, 3, and 5. What would you?
Mayor, could we just get a little, can we gauge the interest of the commissioners so we know how to phrase it instead of just guessing?
Well, I've indicated I would hesitate on the Deauville Beach section until we get do our negotiations and get the lease renewed. Bunky, you were the same, I think?
Yeah.
I am as well on Deauville.
So we need, Ed's asking for everybody to speak up so we know how to make a motion.
There's at least 3, so that fails anyway.
Yeah.
I'll just go through all of them. I'm in favor of all of them because I think today there would have been 5 parking changes, 5 changes related to parking, including the previous one that failed. I don't think that's piecemealing it. I think that is making a decision in a cluster based on expert staff recommendations. All of the changes either would bring in more revenue for the city or save us money in administrative efforts, which is critical for this upcoming budget year. And we're against the wall. There's not much more we would be able to do to increase revenue in this upcoming budget season related to seasonal efforts such as parking at this late juncture. So I'm in favor of all of them. I know Deauville would not pass. Does anyone want to comment on the other 3 items?
Sort of, and specifically, I'm not opposed to them, but I find it very difficult to understand how we have commissioned and paid for a comprehensive study of parking, and at the same time, we are acting on parking-related issues. Why then did we commission a comprehensive study of parking and pay for it? It doesn't make sense to me. So for that reason and that reason alone, I would oppose these.
Well,
But you will remember that we did get preliminary recommendations.
I know we did. And we've said repeatedly that we weren't going to do anything until we get their final recommendations. If you go back and listen to our meetings, we've said this repeatedly.
Evan, remind us when the Rossi report is due, the final version.
End of March.
End of March. And so that's where putting something into April, May, then we can have that greater holistic thing, because that report would be done.
But one of the things I recall on Deauville, just check me if my mind is not as precise as it should be, is that it was creating safety issues on the streets with backing up traffic and
Congestion.
Congestion,
the
yes.
term they use.
So I thought, Evan, I just heard you say we could get the Deauville information possibly for the February workshop or the regular meeting, and look at Deauville just a little more, with a little more information.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
What information?
Well, for me, hopefully we get the Deauville lease resolved.
But please articulate how that is relevant. We are either going to pay the state a portion of parking, whether it's permits or metered, or we're not. How does that dictate in any way the decision that we're making here today?
Have we decided how we're going to handle our relationship with the state on Deauville Beach?
No, and we're not addressing that right now.
I think that's.
Yeah, no, I understand that. My only point is to say I think it's absolutely relevant to Deauville Beach if we haven't made that decision.
Well, unless somebody makes a motion, then it's going to be, the whole thing's going to be tabled. You would like us to act on it, I assume, sooner than later.
Well,
So at least pass what we can.
Yeah. So what I recall from the last meeting was I think I had originally proposed actually bring these ordinances back to the commissioners in February because I didn't think I would have enough time to draft the ordinances. I found the time to draft them, to bring them before the commissioners today, only because if possible, any parking related topics I'd like to get, if it's amendments to ordinances or changes to policies or procedures or anything like that, I want to do it as soon as possible, just so we have adequate time to adjust our operations ahead of the season. Again, I will talk with the parking department, but I certainly think that Deauville Beach could be a topic of discussion in February, but to go beyond February would be too late.
Well, and our agenda planner had three meetings for these parking topics. January 9th special meeting, February 5th workshop, and February whatever regular meeting. So I think that was well thought out, and we've still got a little time.
I'd like to entertain a motion to exclude the three ordinance changes, 9269, 9273, and 92264 from voting at this time to be, I don't know if we have to say this or not, but to be reviewed, discussed, and brought up for approval at a later date.
But otherwise,
the remaining
the other,
to be considered for vote at this time.
Help him out.
Yeah, help me out. Yeah.
Certainly. So you'd like to make a motion, I understand, to adopt this ordinance conditioned upon the following changes. The deletion of lines 44 through 60 sections 2 and 3, and the deletion of line 77 through 87, which is section 5, and those sections amend 92-69, 92-73, and 92-264. You would like to
That's correct.
accept the remainder
If I
of the
may,
ordinance?
if you may speak for me, that would be great. Okay.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Bunky Markert and a second by Commissioner Ed Chernowski to consider an ordinance to amend municipal code sections 92, check me out here, 9235, parking, stopping, or standing in median strips, 92-263, issuance of parking permits, 92-275, issuing of motor scooter parking, and in parentheses, eliminating 9269, 9273, 92-264, correct? Is there any further discussion? What? There were 3 that we removed, yes. With that, I'm going to do a roll call vote.
Do you, any comments from the public? Did you, I don't think we.
I
took any.
offered a comment to everybody earlier. You have one now? Your name and relationship to
Yep,
the
Carolyn Diefender for city resident. I get that you want to look at parking as part of this whole study, but no parking study is going to come out and tell you what to charge for your parking. Okay, so I urge you all to pass this. It is a way to get more money for the city, but it's also a way to clarify things and provide safety when it comes to the parking on the median in Scarborough. But I think it's, yeah, in a perfect world, you would do everything all at once, but we're not in a perfect world. The study was commissioned at such a time that it wasn't going to get, we weren't going to have a final parking study to be able to adjust everything for this season. So I think I feel bad for the parking department. They spent a lot of time justifying every one of these things, and they all made sense. So I really think you should pass these pieces that you've pulled out. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. With that, we're going to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Tony Sharp?
Aye.
Okay, that's vote. Commissioner Chernowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Aye.
Commissioner Markert?
Aye.
Commissioner Preston?
No.
And the mayor votes yes. The vote is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1, and the motion carries. Thank you very much. And Carolyn, we still have this opportunity later in February to address it. So I don't consider it dead yet at all. With that, we'll move on to our last item of business on the agenda, discuss and consider a memorandum of understanding between the city and Paul Lovett to allow for the temporary display of a historical diorama entitled "The Railroad Era, the Golden Age of Rehoboth Beach," at Rehoboth Beach City Hall. Let me bring up the MOU real quick here. Let that come up, Evan, and then we'll let.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple comments I want to make, and then certainly I can turn it over to the city solicitor if there's any questions on the MOU. So right now, the MOU does give the city final approval over any proposed plan for use of the diorama during the term. And this includes, but is not limited to, the hours of operation, any and all signage that's associated with the diorama, and any other use or exhibition of the diorama. And the term that we have specified in this MOU is that it could commence, if executed today, on Monday, this upcoming Monday, January 22nd, 2024, and would terminate on April 30th, 2024, so a little over 3 months. That's all I have to offer Certainly, we can take any questions you might have.
If you haven't seen it, you need to go make an appointment with Paul and see it. It's great. I'm a model railroad fan, and it's amazing the advances they've made in the last 60 years since I had my first Markland HO model train railroad layout. I'm perfectly fine with it on a temporary basis. Where I voiced my concern to the city manager primarily is I don't want to see any disruption of our services because of it. I want to, wherever it's placed, it has to be allow for ADA compliance, people to get around it. It's got to be safe, no electric wires on the ground that people walk over. Can't cause any disruption. Lectures right at this very minute downstairs that we could hear from up here would be unacceptable, that kind of thing. So I think the MOU somewhat covers those on a broad spectrum, but otherwise I think it's fine. This is what, for a 3-month period. And I understand that the board of the museum might be voting on whether it goes in the museum or not. And I think that is something that we don't need to take into account today. That may happen or may not, and I don't think that's any of our concern. It's, do we want to facilitate this for the time noted in the MOU? So I would like to see us move ahead with this today. Is there any discussion up here?
I only have one clarification. Line 64, the MOU.
Hold it.
I know you're not there.
64. Term?
It says it shall commence, just the term, not necessarily the move is not necessarily going to take place beginning on Monday. Is what I'm trying to understand.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, say that again. The MOU.
They don't have to begin the move on Monday, is what I'm trying to clarify.
The terms of the meeting, right.
Okay,
Right.
I'm good.
I don't see it explicit in here. Does this give the city manager the authority to extend the term?
No, not without coming back in front of us. And is this something, city manager, you want to vote on? You want the blessing from the commissioners, or can we just give a nod of a head and you do your thing?
I would defer to the city solicitor on if a vote has to be taken on this, but I am listed as the authorized representative to sign on behalf of the city of Rehoboth Beach. So I think just a general consensus that the city manager can execute into the MOU, I think, is sufficient.
Correct. The city manager is listed as on the signature line on.
Get you trained.
Thank you, Mayor. That's correct, Evan. On line 135, there's a line for the city manager to sign, and to the extent that this body feels this document is an administrative function, you could simply authorize the city manager to enter into this agreement, but no formal action is necessary.
What would you like?
Let's just take a formal action.
Ed, why don't you make a motion?
I move we authorize the city manager to enter into an MOU with Paul Lovett regarding the diorama with the terms specified in the MOU.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Edstronowski and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to authorize the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Paul Lovett for the diorama. Is there any further discussion? Any public comment? Walter, identify yourself in relationship to the city, please.
That's wasted words. Walter Brittingham, 123 thank you, man. Nice to have you back. 123 Henlopen Avenue. I've seen the diorama. I am very, very impressed. I don't think it's going to go away. I think when you get down to damage on line 81, and identification on 85, then I have a few questions. What's the cost going to be to the owner? What's the cost going to be to the city? Not necessarily this board as it sits, but it was going to be $85,000 to have a reception where you pay your bills out front. Came back in because the city manager at the time spent $35,000 or more. And I don't know where you're going to put this, that you're going to keep people's fingers off it. And then you're going to put television cameras on it. You're going to put lights. Is the city, the police department going to be responsible to watch out for that? I don't think this is an emergency. If we had a plan to where it's going to go, and it could be a U-shaped up against the east wall where people could see it, fine. But I think it's a great risk to the owner. I don't think the city should jump into it because I don't think it's going to go away. And I think it should be done with some thoughtfulness. And the most important thing that I read in this, and I went looking for this memorandum, I didn't see any ideas about where it's going to get displayed. Haven't heard anything about that.
Do you have any initial thoughts that you want to share, or?
Sure. So the location can be determined by the city. I think initially Paul had met with Margaret Carson. I think they've identified an area downstairs, sort of in the atrium, that would be sufficient. So certainly we'd ensure that there's enough space to allow for people to walk past the diorama and not be obstructed. But I think space has been identified and is agreeable to both the city and to Paul.
I end with the fact that I think you have so much work to do in the next couple months, you don't even need to delegate it to something. This needs to be physical protection. The man's put a lot of work in it. To anybody that hasn't seen it, I encourage you to look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the liability, again, is all on Paul, not on us. So that's one thing. And just to reiterate my concerns that I don't want disruption. You know, we've got to remember, or if you don't know, I do a lot of media interviews down in the foyer there, which is the area I think where they're contemplating putting it. And my interviews, our interviews down there in that area take precedent over any lectures or anything. Also, you know, we had the Sister Cities garden reception in there. We have children from the elementary school coming and stuff like that. So that is functional, and I want to make sure it remains functional. And then in terms of size of it, I don't know. I don't remember if there's size limitations on it, but by example, putting the T on the end of the diorama, which I think is a future desire, would not be acceptable in my book, and because it would take up that whole width or something. But I think without that, hopefully it fits. Hopefully it fits. Anybody else?
Evan, if you could also just confirm that the city would not be incurring any other expenses such as installing lights or additional cameras or monitoring.
No, I think the only thing that I could think of would be minor electricity to power it, but I can't imagine that would be a lot. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I think we might be headed toward a positive resolution here, so I don't know if you want to speak or just keep silent.
I think we're in the middle of a,
We hadn't taken a vote yet.
okay, but where are we? We've had a motion and a second?
We have a motion and a second. We were in discussion, and we went to the public, so now we're back to this table, and we're ready for a roll call vote, I believe.
Aye.
Hasn't called on me.
Does anybody want to just, we can do a group vote and see how that works out. Well, do I have a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
And a second.
Yeah.
Edward,
Motion, second.
yes.
And that's to approve, authorize the memorandum, authorize the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Paul Lovett relative to the diorama. Commissioner Shanowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Markert?
Aye.
Commissioner Preston?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp?
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye, and the Motion is carried unanimously. Congratulations, Paul. Thank you very much. Thank you, Evan, for creating that. With that, we'll move on to our next item of business, which is Commissioner announcements and comments.
If I could make a request, Mayor, I think I'm personally worried that we're going into the budget season, and we haven't gotten into a lot of details yet, but there are a tremendous amount of expenditures in this upcoming year. And I would like to consider us making a modest increase to the parking fees of 25 cents per hour. And I'd like to make that request, I think, sooner rather than later, so it can start to be digested in the public. Because I do know that increased revenue for this upcoming fiscal year is going to be required.
Well, why wasn't this brought up at the parking meeting? I mean, no recommendation, because the parking meeting was addressing recommendations of the parking study and the parking thing, and they didn't do that. Well, what is the deadline for, being mindful that we've got the Chamber of Commerce has their map going out, we have our own parking map. What is our deadline for doing that? Because it's not just those maps, it's reconfiguring the meters and everything, right?
Yeah. Meter configuration, certainly some of the stickers on the meters as well. We can try and get a list of everything that would need to be updated and timelines for that.
Well, I guess let me say this. I'll defer to the city manager on whether he thinks it's possible or not, but I don't know. I just don't know how we go into this budget season knowing what we know in terms of the expenditures that are going to be required. We just heard about compensation being under a very significant health insurance increases, the capital outlays we have in the next year or two. I just don't know how we can move in knowing all of that without thinking of one of the biggest revenue sources.
I agree with you, and I'm hoping that at the next meeting we can get the presentation of the entire budget and maybe focus on a couple things, and that the presentation include, like in the old days, we used to have a cover sheet of saying what the increases are and why, and I wish they would go back to doing something like that, because you're right, there's significant increases. You start looking at the increases in health benefits and everything, and it's almost exorbitant.
And our hands...
Mayor, point of order.
Mayor.
This is a commissioner comment, not the discussion. So I've learned that from you, Mayor, Mayor Mills, and from
Okay.
So I'll leave my comments there.
from Walter, so we might want
Let's
to.
make note, so.
I agree with you, so I'll make a commissioner comment in response to the commissioner's comment. Sorry, I agree with you, but why 25 cents? Why not $1? It goes to a bigger point.
I am cutting this off, unfortunately. But after I get the last word in, remember Dewey Beach just went to 350, so they used to match us and now they're higher. End of conversation. We'll consider putting this on a future, or at the budget meeting is a perfect time to bring it up again. Any other commissioner comments or announcements? Nope. Review future meeting dates. Please put on your calendars. Monday, February 5th, 9 a.m. workshop. Monday, February 5th, 2 p.m. budget meeting number 2. Friday, February 16th, 9 a.m. budget number 3. Friday, February 16th, 2 p.m. regular meeting. With that, is there any additional citizen comment on things not on this agenda? Walter? Carolyn? No, Walter, is that a no?
Walter Birmingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. You talk about spending, maybe be looking, because there's so many things that you've needed in the past. We've learned a lot of lessons here today from the compensation thing and the young lady that runs the department. But maybe rather than buy everything, maybe cut back on some things that we don't need.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else? Carolyn, you're fine? All righty. With that, the next item of business is executive session for the purpose of conducting preliminary discussions on leases of real property as permitted by 29 Del C, Section 10,004B2, also known as the Freedom of Information Act. With that, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session. I'd like you to read the entire copy there. Ed?
Mayor, I move we enter an executive session for the purpose of conducting preliminary discussions on leases of real property as permitted by 29 Del C, Section 10,004B2.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shanowski and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to enter into executive session for the purposes noted in the agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and the motion's carried unanimously. We are headed to executive session. My typical statement, but prior to going into executive session is, for the public, is that we don't know what the duration of the executive session will be. There will be no actions in the executive session, no actions expected back in the public session, and we will be back in public session to adjourn. With that, we are recessed.
We have to take a vote, Mayor.
Okay.
Did we?
We didn't take a vote in?
No.
Oh, well, keep me straight there.
All in favor? Aye.
There's a
No.
Thank you. We are now in executive session. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Were you not going to speak up? Huh? Are you done with the electrics?
Mayor,
Yes.
she's ready.
Are we ready? I'd like to entertain a motion to come out of executive session back into the public session.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Ed Chanowski and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to come out of executive session back into public session. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I would like to make note, Ann, you make note that Don was not present to come back into public session. And with that, there's no further business to be taken care of. I adjourn this meeting at 5:38. Thank you very much.